This is a special occasion for us. It's special in a number of ways. The first reason that it's special is that we're actually here today primarily to celebrate the launching of our 25th anniversary. We have some big events coming up during the year, but today we're going to launch those, literally in some ways, launch those celebrations. Up on the screen, as you were arriving, there were a number of slides which showed a very brief history of our school from our very humble beginnings in 1993 all the way through to the present day. And it has been quite a remarkable journey. We will be publishing a book, The History of the First 25 Years of Mulgrave, in the next couple of months, which tells that story in a lot more detail. It's a story of incredible commitment, incredible vision, and incredible energy as students and parents and teachers got together and created the incredible school that we have today. In addition to celebrating, or rather helping us celebrate this launching of our anniversary, we do have somebody who's come along as our guest speaker today. I'm going to ask somebody else to introduce her, but we are extremely honored to have somebody who has such alignment with our school values and somebody who is doing so much to help in the world that mirrors many of the things that you are doing. So what I'd like to do to start is to introduce one of the members of our community, a Mulgrave parent, but a person who already does an incredible amount to support our community, and that's Mr. Aleem Sheikh. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Do you know, every time I have been to assembly here, you're much louder than you are this morning, and I don't know why that is. So let me make sure you're awake. Good morning, boys and girls. No, that's not it. Maybe we need to get the kindergarten here. Good morning. That's much better, because I know there's so much energy here, and we've got to make sure that we have that. It's truly a special day, as John says. 25 years old. That's almost as old as me. Tough crowd. Okay, well, it's truly an honor today to introduce our keynote speaker, Julie Ann Wrigley. And it's such an honor that I get to do this because, as well as working with Julie, I see Julie as a very special friend and someone that I learn a lot from as well. Julie is a graduate from Stanford University with a degree in anthropology. But that's not all. She also earned a Juris Doctorate with the highest distinction from the University of Denver's College of Law. Now, when I was speaking to my wife, Halima, I said, you know, I'd love to describe Julie with one phrase, and she actually hit the nail on the head. Halima said, well, the way I would say it is that leadership is action, not position. And Julie has been a true example of this from a very early age, when she first developed a passion for the environment, for conservation, and she always has maintained that. She's wanted to do her part to ensure that future generations like yourselves would have the same quality of life that her generation has enjoyed. That was her intention, even when, after she went to law school back in the 70s, before joining the corporate world, she wanted to help businesses understand their responsibility for the environment. Now, today we hear a lot about corporate responsibility, but back then that never existed. But Julie understood this. She understood it in a very unique and special way, and she got that message across. It took years before it eventually came out, but it showed how far in advance she was in her thinking. Julie's uniquely strategic approach was instrumental at the William Wrigley Jr. Company, the largest manufacturer of chewing gum in the world. Have you heard of Wrigley's chewing gum? Okay, good, you're still awake. Okay, as well as that, she also has served on dozens of corporate and philanthropic boards, including E.W. Scripps Company, the Associated Bank of Chicago, the First Bank of Idaho, the American Eagle Group, the World Wildlife Fund, and that's just naming very few. Today, as a successful businesswoman, an inspirational role model and philanthropist, she continues to give back. Or more accurately, she continues to invest in the future, in your future. Much of her time is spent with her philanthropic work, not only in environmental sustainability, but also in healthcare and education. In 2007, she was honored with the Arizona Outstanding Philanthropist Award, and again in 2014 with ASU's Medal of Excellence. The Arizona Board of Regents also honored her with the Regents Award for Outstanding Service to Higher Education in the same year. She's the co-founder of the Wrigley Institute for Environmental Studies at USC and the president and CEO of Wrigley Investments. The Julie Ann Wrigley Institute of Sustainability, which was named in her honor, is a world leader in teaching, discovery, and solutions in sustainability, a field that was virtually unknown before her transformative investment at ASU. From that institute grew the world's first school of sustainability and the largest sustainability faculty on the earth. She's a role model to us all. She demonstrates that when like-minded people work together, we can increase the pace and scale of sustainability solutions and create a more sustainability world. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, please join me in welcoming Julie Ann Wrigley.
Thank you, Aleem. When he was giving that little presentation, I kept looking around to see who he was talking about. Because while it's been a lifetime, and it takes a journey to get to the point where you start to learn things in life like I have, it's still a little bit unrecognizable. Anyway, now that Aleem has woken you up, I'll get to put you back to sleep. Good morning to you all. I'm honored to share in your 25th amazing anniversary celebration. This remarkable school has grown in size and spirit thanks to the vision of your leaders, parents, and community. Congratulations. The Mulgrave School inspires you to achieve your personal best. And when I did the research ahead of time, like you have all done, I was just amazed at how it comes through, your personal best. It encourages you to make a profound difference in the world at a time when our world needs it the most. My message to you on this important day is to keep your eyes open for signs along the way and listen for your passions. Understand the challenges the world faces and the opportunities for you to join with other bright minds to solve them. Continuously ask yourself, how can I use my talents to make a difference? A difference that really matters. Realize that your purpose will evolve, embrace change with the world around you. I titled this, to paraphrase someone, I titled it, It Takes a Journey. So let me take you on my journey. I grew up in the coast of Southern California, overlooking the ocean, much like you have the opportunity. And I virtually lived on the beach. As time passed, however, the plentiful abalone and the magnificent view of Catalina Island, which is not far from the coast of Southern California, both started to disappear. Though I was very young, I was confused, angry, and alarmed, and even at that young age, wanted to protect the environment we all loved. So I've been accused of having it in my DNA, and I think that's probably accurate. I'm an environmentalist, an anthropologist, an attorney, and a businesswoman. When you add that up over a lifetime, for me, it equals a passion for sustainability. A passion for the well-being of society, the environment, and economic prosperity. Excuse me if I look this way. I mean to look at all of you. Let me catch up. It led me to co-found, as Aleem said, the Global Institute of Sustainability 14 years ago at Arizona State University. Out of that, we created the world's first school of, certainly the US's first school of sustainability. The task at hand was bigger than any single siloed decision. It would take all of our brains working together, including educational institutions like Mulgrave schools, like universities, governments, and private industries. So the task was, how did we stop the thinking being siloed? I think you and I have a lot in common. I attended a school much smaller but quite similar to Mulgrave. It was on a 40,000-acre cattle ranch in the mountains of Arizona. I studied at the Orm School, founded 90 years ago, and much like yours, founded for the children of somebody who was interested in making sure their children got a great education. Like you, we were trusted to do our best at all times and put responsibility to others before ourselves. We were taught to apply what we learned with both wisdom and tolerance in the complex and imperfect world we inherited. We learned that diverse voices and views led to better problem solving. Like Orm, the Mulgrave School is preparing you to be the world's great change makers. At Stanford University, I was privileged to study under Jane Goodall to investigate how societies and cultures developed. I put those two passions together, added a law degree, and thought I was going to charge into the world to change the corporate world, which was my growing up background. And as far as any law firms understood the concept of the environment at the time, it was oil and gas financing documents. So that really wasn't a satisfactory solution. But as Aleem said, I never gave up, and kept thinking in the back of my mind, there were better ways to look at this. In business, I looked for others who shared my passion, and I got involved as, again, Aleem took my words, at some of the great NGOs and other entities to keep working towards these long-term goals that were still somewhat ambiguous. I embraced change along the way. Just gobbled up new ideas and things that could add to my thinking. This gave me another profound perspective, and that was, despite the fact that we can make, if we work hard and do good things, we can do well by our individual efforts, but true impact comes from partnerships. Look around you at your classmates and imagine what you could accomplish if you combined your skills and worked together for a cause. So how did the planet get in this mess? After the Great Depression and World War I, our society was down, at World War II as well, our society was downright giddy with the fast pace of progress. There was an acceleration in technology, ever growing, ever increasing use of fossil fuels, and industrial agriculture. Bigger was better. But that progress came with pitfalls as we depleted the soil, poisoned the water, melted the ice, and perhaps overpopulated the earth. In the 1980s, the United Nations issued a report that defined the word sustainability as meeting the needs of the present without sacrificing the needs of the future. They quantified what we all knew in our hearts. Humanity's demand on the planet has more than doubled in just 45 years. In 2004, I met Dr. Michael Crow, the new president of Arizona State University. This university was not my alma mater, although both my family and my married family had connections to the state going back to the early 20s. But this man had a unique concept of how we educate. He sponsored a retreat in Temazon in the Yucatan in Mexico with the world's leading experts in the field that the just beginning to be recognized field of sustainability. For a major brainstorming session, he asked me if I wanted to join them. Of course, I jumped at the chance. Then he told me there was a catch, a condition of my attendance. I wasn't allowed to speak for 3 days. Now, those who know me know that's almost impossible, but I passed that test and have certainly made up for it since then. At Arizona State, I discovered a university that could serve as an intellectual home for sustainability. The university was young enough to break down the academic silos we think of and build itself around the overarching value of sustainability. It's the largest university in the United States. Between online and on campuses, we educate almost 80,000 students and growing. Actually, I think online, it's over 100,000 students total. And the university was brave enough to deliver results, not just theories. We created the Global Institute of Sustainability, and out of that came the School of Sustainability. It was a bold approach. We had no idea if organizations would join us. And remember, partnerships was an underlying part of what we were trying to create. It was a leap of faith by a small group, Aleem was part of that, who had great hope. As they say, if you build it, they will come, one hopes, and did they ever. More than 350 universities have followed our leads and created degrees in sustainability. And instead of being proprietary about our curriculum, we share it with anybody who asks. We have the largest sustainability faculty in the world, more than 500 scientists, scholars, faculty who are experts across the entire university. Nobody got left out. And like the programs you have here, from arts to anthropology, from entrepreneurship to economics, every part of the university participates because that's the only way we're going to work towards these real world problems. We have thousands of students studying across the campus, ready to join alumni who are the new leaders in the field. And all of our sustainability graduates, undergraduates, masters, and PhDs have jobs within a year. 90% of those in their chosen field. We have partners around the globe in civil society, business, academia, and government who are increasing the pace and scale of these proven sustainability solutions. We saw the signs along the way. We knew what we were good at and had faith that together we could make a difference. The world has changed dramatically in my lifetime. I remember when I used to hear that my parents lived when there weren't airplanes, or just as airplanes were starting up. We lived before there were jet airplanes. Your world will evolve even faster. Imagine how yours will change, and in ever smaller timeframes. Like the totem pole, which I did notice out front, many visionaries came before me, and I'm building on their work. I'm counting on you to take the baton and to light your torch to continue the progress we've made in the world. We've got to create a sustainable world, and I know from a very young age, you're learning and understanding what the job means, and it will evolve as well. The Mulgrave School has prepared you for college, and more importantly, it has prepared you for life. Remember to keep your head up and your hearts open to serving the needs of our people and our planet. Seek out the collaborators who will help you put the pieces together and connect the dots to address the challenges our society will face. And always stay vigilant to the signs along the way. I thank the educators, the parents, and the community leaders who have made this extraordinary school possible. We're all grateful for the vision of 25 years ago to better prepare our youth for their role as global citizens. We need your talents now more than ever. Thank you for your kindness and attention, and good luck in the next 25 years.
Julie, thank you so much for an inspirational address. But more than that, thank you so much for your inspiration in terms of your role and your passion around environmental sustainability. We often talk to our students about the legacy that we are leaving. And to be frank, from our generations, we're not leaving a great legacy, but the legacy you're leaving is a message and a model for all of us of any age to follow, and to realize that the future is not only in these young people's hands. Whatever age and stage we are in our lives, then the responsibility continues to be ours too. So thank you very much for your inspiration.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Julie, I have a small gift for you. Members of the Mulgrave community will recognize this. This gift is a Sitka tree, and it's carved specially for Mulgrave. The Sitka tree is a very important emblem for us. It represents the West Coast. It represents the power and strength of community that we have here at Mulgrave. And we present one of these Sitka trees to our graduating families and our graduating students. So, given your support for our school and your commitment to sustainability, we felt that it was absolutely appropriate to present one of our dear Sitka trees for you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Now, we have some time for some questions, and what we're going to do is I'm going to invite Julie to join me on the chairs up here. I've also asked some of our student board members to join too. We've got a couple of questions which we're going to pose to the panel, and then afterwards we'll open questions from the floor about the issues that Julie has raised today. So could I ask our student board members to come up, please? Thank you. Julie, please come and have a seat. Okay, so we have a couple of prepared questions, and rather than ask Julie straight away, I'm going to pose these questions to our students. I'm not sure, have you all seen these questions beforehand? You have. Okay, so we're looking for very special answers then. Okay, and I'm not going to ask the same question of all of you, but let's start off with Liliana as you're at the end. Liliana, what do you think are the biggest environmental issues that we should be concerned about today? You need to use the mic.
I think it kind of is a word that we hear a lot, global warming. It's a huge, huge prominent issue, obviously. But one way that I've experienced it and that I've personally seen it is I was up north on Baffin Island a couple years ago in Pangnirtung. And it's this very small, isolated place on a fjord that you need to access by boat or by plane. And they only get their food, they get all of their resources in twice per year. So they get all of their groceries, all of their automobiles, anything that they need in order to survive, basically, they have it transported to them. But because they're in a fjord, there's this huge, there's a really large body of water, obviously, that has things called ice flows, which are basically chunks of ice. But what global warming has been doing is it has been melting the ice caps and basically pushes all of those ice flows into the fjord, which creates a barrier, and no boats can get in there. So they can't deliver any of the necessities that the people there need. Thus, people aren't able to survive, and people are having to leave what is considered their hometown. And Pangnirtung is such an amazing place because it's one of the only places in Canada where culture is still so intact, and the culture that they celebrate is still very prominent. So not being able to celebrate their culture and having to leave a place that is so traditional and important to them is very devastating for that community.
Thanks, Liliana. So that's global warming potentially raising sea levels and forcing people out of their communities. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Andrew, would you mind answering that question too? And then I'll ask Julie to answer.
Oh, sorry. Oh, answering that question. Oh, of course.
What do you think are the biggest environmental issues that we should be concerned about today?
I think building on what Liliana said, kind of going into the core of what we're ultimately seeing with enhanced global warming being a very large problem. The overconsumption of resources in particular does really change how global warming is becoming a problem. So what we're seeing is we're seeing a lot of one-use materials. I was actually recently doing a project in French about disposable coffee cups, and Canadians alone throw away 6 billion coffee cups each year, and that goes straight into the landfills. And so I think the problem is that we're building things that aren't meant to last. There's a lot, we're planning to build things that aren't sustainable. And so I think we need to develop methods and kind of various ways in which we can use our resources more efficiently and have them last longer. And then that'll ultimately cut down our emissions and other problems.
Okay, thank you. So we're already hearing about a range of different environmental and sustainability issues that we face. But Julie, I wonder from your perspective, what are the most important ones?
Well, I think both of you hit on very key issues, but I'd bring up another couple for you to think about. And Andrew, I hope you and the people you work with, for example, will recognize a circular economy system, whether it's a home, whether it's food. How do we make sure that things can be reusable? Can we build a car that every part of it can be reusable? Probably another way to look at your very correct answers, I am very engaged in and concerned about how do we change people's behavior. You're looking at the real viable solutions to some of these things, but it's not going to happen if we don't find ways to educate not only our politicians, but our everyday friends and family, how to do things a little differently. And one of the things that we've engaged in is making sure every choice we want to make, we look at the economics of it, we look at the engineering of it. And I think those are the things you all will be able to bring to the table.
Thank you, Julie. And that reminds me of a conversation we were having at dinner last night, where I talked to Julie about the profile of our student body and said very clearly that many of you here will become leaders, whether that's leaders in your communities or your businesses or even potentially politically. And so in many ways, as potential future leaders, you have a huge responsibility to address these environmental sustainability issues so that we are looking after the future. Selena, I'd like to come to you next. I know you're involved in development issues around the world, and the question I'd like to ask you is a rather long one. So in the West, we have historically polluted the environment as our countries have industrialized, developed, and deforesting our countries. We've been using fossil fuels and we've not been concerned about the environment. So over history, we've done a great deal of damage to the environment. So the message we're now giving to those countries who aren't developed, who are still developing, India, to some extent China and other countries, is please stop using coal. Please stop taking down your trees. Is it fair that we should be giving that message to those countries when we've done the damage, we've now developed, we're wealthy countries? So how can we answer that issue?
So I think the same way that it applies like in our daily lives, when you make a mistake, it's important to share with like other people what you learned from that. And I think the same way might come across as a little bit of like a hypocrite kind of perspective. I do think it's important to share with countries that might be industrializing now as opposed to how we have, I guess, earlier historically, that there are more sustainable ways, and like science and engineering is working on that specifically, and that we have damaged the environment. And when we industrialize, we weren't really thinking about how we can sustain the environment and industrialize as a country. And I think we were talking about this earlier, and Andrew mentioned that the Paris Climate Agreement was a really important step, I think, in the direction of helping countries that are trying to industrialize to be more sustainable and to protect the environment in ways that we didn't necessarily when we were industrializing. So it might not be fair, but I do think it's important because we can learn from what the mistakes that we've made, particularly, I guess, in the West, and sort of make a change in how we approach things so that we don't repeat those same mistakes again.
Thank you. And I think the key word you use there is we must help those developing economies manage more sustainably. Henry, can I bring you in? Would you like to also have a go at that question?
Well, I think that it sort of ties into what Julie was talking about with the university sharing their curriculum and their resources with all the other universities to really build programs around the US, but we can sort of magnify that and think about countries who have developed technologies to be more sustainable, to help conserve resources. They need to be sharing that sort of freely with so many organizations and other countries, especially those who are less developed, because I think we've been so fortunate to be lucky enough to have developed, to have found, whether we were fortunate because we had countries with good resources or whatever caused us to become so developed, it's now taking that understanding that we do live in a global world and that our actions and the actions of other countries will affect each other. And we have to realize that our borders are just really on maps, and we need to go beyond what we think as the other and someone else, and we need to realize that it's our world and it's everybody's world, and we need to really share it and share those technologies.
Thank you. Julie, have you got a take on this question?
I have a take on everything. It may not be valid. Again, both excellent answers. One of the cases that I think can add to that, when China was evolving into a more modern country, the U.S. was only allowed to sell to them 3-generation-old coal facilities, how to create energy out of the coal. Instead of the latest technology, I think one of our great responsibilities and opportunities, whether it comes from another part of the world or comes from us, is to share what each of us learns, what are state-of-the-art, for our time, technologies. A great example of people sharing is the world no longer thinks that you have a phone because you have to have a power line with it. There's no other countries have understood you can have cell phones. You don't no longer have to be stuck with communicating with the world only because some sort of a power utility put poles up across your pristine land. Again, those are but two examples how we can sort of help countries leapfrog to modern technology rather than think we're better so we can only give or sell them technologies that are old. And I think those are some of the things as we, our countries, and the developed world make progress. And one of the things I want to clarify, at many American universities, partnerships are created all around the world. And we also have partnerships both in business and universities worldwide, from Europe to England to Australia to parts of Africa and Hong Kong. So the more we can create these partnerships, not only of equals, but up and down different scales, the more opportunities we'll all have.
Thank you. And now, Ingrid, sorry to put you on the spot with this question. But in the spirit of think global, act local, what are you doing in your home, with your family, and in your life to support environmental sustainability? I ought to put that challenge question to everybody, to be fair, but you have a go first.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I think it really comes down to like even the little things. I know I was talking to my parents about it last night. Actually, like what are we doing? You know, like, but it's like the little things. Like we recycle, we compost. Something that I don't think I actually noticed until we actually talked about it is in my house we don't use plastic wrap. We use I think it's a soybean-based wrap for lunches. So like even little things like that I think are really a way to kind of take a lead in incorporating sustainability into our own lives. I know something larger that my family's doing in probably about a year is our neighbors have bees. They have a bee colony, so my parents, we're just going through a renovation right now, but we're planning on actually starting our own colony of bees in our yard once everything's settled. So it's kind of a range of different actions, but like I said, it can be as small as just replacing plastic wrap with soybean-based sandwich wrap. It's something that everyone can take on in their own way. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad you challenged your parents to that question too. That's really important. Would anybody else like to just say, this is not the time to be bashful. Are you proud of anything that's happening in your life, with your family's life, about how you're, and Selena, I know your parents are sitting in the balcony here, so yes. No, it doesn't have to be you, but it's anybody.
Well, I mean, it's not like it's something I'm proud of, but I know that my family makes an effort to use reusable containers and water bottles every day. We might lose them sometimes, but we definitely make an effort to avoid using plastic. I know my mom also, when she goes to the grocery store, always takes reusable bags so that we eliminate that use of plastic bags. I think, and also if we end up having to use plastic bags, we make sure we reuse those plastic bags for other purposes within our household. So
you should be proud of that. and that's the challenge for all of you as well, is, are you making sure that you really are developing sustainable practices in your personal lives? Because thinking local has an impact globally. And I would just take this reminder for everybody to use the recycling in the cafeteria properly, please. Okay, Julie, would you like to comment on that question?
Sometimes I keep thinking we don't do enough, and I learned a very valuable lesson right now about soybean plastics. We look for it. We need to make sure that the stores we go in, we remind people again and again to look for and make available things like the soybean wrap. That's a great idea. And personally, I built 15 years ago a larger home than I would build today. But in the meantime, through some changes, we use half the water we did 15 years ago or less by completely redoing our yard in native and endemic plants. And instead of watering the grasses that were not endemic, instead of watering them 3 times a day, we now water every 12 days. And between LED lights and better practices about when we turn off our lights and how we use them, we've cut our electricity bill in half. So these are small, but as you mentioned, they're small things, but they become big things.
Thank you, and thank you so much for all of those answers. I know that there was a number of people in the audience who have got questions. Unfortunately, we're not going to have time to take them in this audience, but what's going to happen over the next few hours is Julie is going to be meeting a number of groups of students who have a particular interest in sustainability issues in a more kind of informal setting. So I hope that you'll have a chance to ask those questions during those sessions.